for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, and they're like, it's better than yours. Damn right, it's better than yours. I could teach you, but I have to charge. My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, and they're like, it's better than yours. Damn right, it's better than yours. I could teach you, but I have to charge. You want it, the thing that makes me what the guys go crazy for. They lose their minds the way I whine. I think it's time.
Happy Monday. You are locked in to RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. That is a way to kick off a Monday. A little Khalees milkshake. We bring it all to the yard, right? That's right, because it's thick. Today's Khalees's, but that's right, she is a Leo. Happy birthday to Khalees. I used to work with Khalees back in the day at Virgin. So in between that first and second album is when I started working there. Also worked with, the Neptunes, NERD, their first album, In Search Of. That was an interesting time. One day we'll talk about that. At any rate, welcome to RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. This is the entertainment, sports, culture, and lifestyle show where we hit all the trending topics in those areas. Of course, I'm your host, Stiletto Jill Munroe. And you are hopefully well rested from the weekend, dry. We had a weather event over the weekend, kind of.
A tropical storm.
We had a tropical storm / earthquake, a hurricane, I heard it referred to. Something. We had weather. Listen, what I do know is if you didn't believe in global warming for some reason, you should now. That's all I got to say. You should now. I mean, take it into account. So we have a packed show for you tonight because it's Monday, and a lot has happened since we were last together. So I got to give you the rundown on what we're going to get into tonight. Of course, we have so much to talk about. So first up, we're going to get into a little bit Irv Gotti. He's still talking. Yes, he's always talking. This time, he shares his thoughts on Dame Dash's contributions to Roc-A-Fella, what he thinks that he gave to that mix or what he didn't. We're going to get into that. See if he has some valid points or what you think about that. We're also going to get into a little bit about the hurricane. Did it live up to expectations? And I wonder if you're keeping track of all of the crazy weather events that have happened over the past year or so in the United States. It's kind of interesting to look at. Today is the 20th anniversary since Jennifer Hudson auditioned for American Idol. And so we know what her career has been. So we're going to have a little conversation with my guest for the evening about which has produced more stars, American Idol or Star Search. We're going to talk a little bit about that. My guest tonight is a music historian, writer, journalist, and critic, Mark Chappelle. We're going to talk to him, get into his backstory. He has some unconventional thoughts related to music and such, so we're going to pick his brain about that. and just have some fun conversation surrounding music. We always love that, right? Of course, there's some sports stories in the mix that are buzzing around. Steph Curry was on Gilbert Arenas' podcast, and, Gilbert asked him if he thinks that he is the greatest point guard ever. And Steph said yes. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and talk about what those comparisons will be and if they're the right thing. We're also going to talk about T. Morant. He's speaking out about his son Ja's troubles that have happened over the past few months. We have some Lonzo Ball rules news. A little bit on Angel Reese and the good things that she is doing. We're also going to talk more sports news. We're going to get into Sha'Carri Richardson. Don't know if you saw the 100-meter race today in Budapest. She did her thing. We're going to talk a little bit about that, about some of her comments and what she did post-race that I kind of feel her on. I understand her position. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And, we might have time to talk about 50 Cent's comments about the not sell of BET and why he's not concerned about it. Sierra, she was involved in a couple of things, clapping back. All that and more, that's the lineup for tonight. But before we get into all of that, I have a couple of conversation starters for you. Oh, let me remind you, if you want to call in and get in on any of this conversation, 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. You can hit us up on social media, KBLA 1580, everywhere. Join the YouTube chat. It's always fire in there. There's a lot of commentary that goes down in there. Separately, you can come and participate. So, hop on YouTube. We appreciate that. Or if you're moving, right, like you got to be in and then hop out, download the app. You can take us with you anywhere, anytime. You can listen to all the shows, leave messages for the host, like something you want in your life. Hit that up. And, get ready to join the conversation. YouTube is already buzzing. So when we come forward, we will have our guest, Mark Chappelle, and we'll get into all the trending topics. You are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Infusing a sense of fun and entertainment in every episode. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
Need help with the job hunt? It can be challenging, but don't worry. LA County has your back. With a variety of available support services, you'll get the help you need while finding a job. We're here to help you succeed. Let's get started. Find out if you qualify at recovery.lacounty.gov/programs. That's recovery.lacounty.gov/programs. LA County and you moving forward together.
Attention taxpayers. Ready for some bad news? With $80 billion in new funding from Congress, the IRS has launched their most aggressive hiring campaign ever to ramp up enforcement. If you're ignoring your taxes, don't delay another minute because your paycheck, your bank account, even your home or business could already be at risk. Now, here's the good news. Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax relief firm, can get to work immediately helping to protect you from the IRS. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Their tax attorneys and licensed professionals are experts at resolving tax problems. Let them help determine if you qualify for the Fresh Start Initiative or other powerful IRS tax assistance programs. Take control. Call Optima Tax Relief now for a free consultation.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action is the youth component of the impactful CBO, known as the Community Coalition. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action has chapters at almost every South LA high school. Say Yeah, as they are popularly known, is located at 80th and Vermont, but serves young people all over South LA. Under the COCO umbrella, they train youth organizers, help underserved scholars prepare for college, and work with students to help them gain admission to top universities. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action fosters teen activism, where young people have led campaigns moving tens of millions of dollars to South LA schools and forcing officials to make AP classes available to students in under-resourced institutions. SCES scholars have taken part in the March on Washington, been published in major news outlets, and been elected to city council. Long before she was mayor, Karen Bass started the program when she founded the Community Coalition. To donate, volunteer, or enroll a student in South Central Youth Empowered Through Action, please visit cocsouthla.org. cocsouthla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Keeping you informed, entertained, and always ahead of the curve. This is RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. And before we get into tonight's topics and our guest, I just want to send condolences out to the family of Ron Cephas Jones. He passed away at the age of 66 over the weekend. I know most of us have most recently recall watching him in This Is Us, but he also had played a part in several of our favorite films. He Got Game, Paid in Full, Dolomite, What's My Name, Mr. Robot, Raising the Sun, several things. Long career, varied roles, just very much range. His daughter, Jasmine, is currently on, I think it's Blind Spotting, which is on Stars. I believe that's the name of it. She was his only child. So sending lots of love and support to their family. And, you know, it's always hard when we have losses like that. So I mentioned that we have a guest, a music historian, a journalist, a person that has a deep, deep knowledge about music and strong opinions about it. So I'm excited to talk to him. We're going to have a great conversation about some of these trending topics in music and just get his opinion and thoughts on some others. Welcome in, Mr. Mark Chappelle.
Well, hello. It's such a pleasure to be here. Hello.
I am so excited. I'm glad that you made it in tonight, Mark. So, I mean, listen. How does one decide that they're going to be a music historian? Like, how does that journey begin?
Oh my gosh, decide. I guess I'm a music historian just because I've been looking at it for a while. I've been reading about it for a while, and after a while, it seemed like, okay, I guess now I'm a historian because so much of what I know is now history. I'm not old. Okay, yeah, I'm old, but it's
vintage.
Great.
I like vintage. I prefer the use of the word
vintage, experienced. I'm capable of many things because I've been around for a minute. But yeah, I love talking about music. It has brought me joy for a long time. Like, it's bringing people joy now. So like, history is just it's in the making. Like, okay, so if you think about like Cardi B and Megan's WAP, eventually that's going to be like in CBS, and it's not going to be a big deal. It's going to be like when we hear Knocking the Boots in CBS, it's like, wait a minute, they wouldn't play that on BET before, and now it's background music.
It's everywhere. It's like what we shop to.
Basically. Like, and I'm like, for real? Because you're real concerned about your kids hearing this before, and now it's not a big deal. It's just history happening. It'll happen again.
I mean, but wasn't WAP a history-making single? So that's
really
appropriate.
was.
Like, literally. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, right? But that, I mean, that was a good song. Like, listen, it made you move to the dance floor. It's a lot of what I feel hip-hop is lacking right now. But that's a topic that we'll get into a little later.
Of course.
Yes. Because as we've talked about on this show, women are running hip-hop right now. And the reason why they are running hip-hop is because they are making music that people can dance and party to. And I feel like we've been missing that. It's been a lot of vibes, which I love vibes, but I don't know. The originality is lacking.
Yeah, party is a vibe that's missing.
It is.
Can we get that vibe, maybe?
Maybe a little bit. I think that there are, we see it starting to come back. So I want to ask you before, well, you know that it's just been until recently, there hasn't been a song in the top 5 or to go number 1 on the Billboard Hot 200 or Hot 100 this year until recently. And it was a song that Lotto did with one of those K-pop groups. I can't remember it.
Oh, wow.
And so that's the first time that has happened since 1993.
I'm sorry. What's the first time? What has happened since 1993?
That there's been no hip-hop song in the top 100 or 200 on Billboard for, I think, the first 7 months of this year. That was true.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened because hip hop has become even more of a force than it was 30 years ago. Like I feel like hip hop maybe it was more potent 30 years ago, but like it's now a lot more upfront in culture. Like hip hop isn't just having to fight for a place at the table. Like in some senses, it is the table.
It has been for a long time. But do you think that is Tony Yayo? Shout out to him in the chat. Says has Afro beats taken over? I think we're going to table that, put a pin in that for 1 second, because I think we can come back to that. Do you think that it is just hip hop? We just celebrated the 50th anniversary of the launch of hip hop, right? Some technically started at 79 when the Sugar Hill Gang single was released. No matter where you put it, it's an old genre at this point, right? It's far outlasted disco, which people, thought would come and go, but reached a higher heights. It's, to your point, most people believe it's taken over as mainstream, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is it just the fact that it's the end of its cycle? Rock and roll had its time at the top, new wave, things of that nature. Is it just the point that hip hop has matured, and not saying that it's going to go away, but is it just no longer its time to be at the top?
I think that happens because I don't think it's R&B's time to be at the top right now. But I don't think you can kill R&B or even subjugate it for long. It's interesting that you mentioned disco because if anything, disco evolved. People didn't stop dancing, but like everything was specific.
It became house music, freestyle, dance. People don't think about that through line, but because one, and not to interrupt you, sorry, but I think to your point, it continued to be dance music, but the sound evolved, the look of it evolved as well.
So the question is, does it get to evolve? Because disco evolved, it changed names. But I think people who understand, like, okay, disco became house, and it also became techno, and then also splintered off EDM, and then there's also drum and bass and jungle and all these other things. Like, disco has continued to evolve. What's hard now is hip-hop is evolving, and I don't think we like it. Like, before Tribe Called Quest came through, like, we didn't like them doing that thing. I say we, but it was like the old heads that came up with, like, Run DMC. They didn't want the new class to come in. And so then when the people who were young then became old, now you have, like, I think it was it Fife maybe from Tribe Called Quest that was saying, like, we
Fife
need to...
is deceased.
Oh, but before he passed.
Oh, okay.
He was saying, like, give these new kids a chance. Or it might have been Fife, it might have been one of the members of De La Soul that were saying, like, hey, when we first came through, they didn't want to give us a chance, and so now it's time for us to, like, step back and let the new class through. Maybe it's just time to let them through. I don't love everything about it, but I realize it's the same thing moving culture forward as we first heard Lottie Dottie or something.
So here's the thing. I don't love everything about it either, but I do think that, music for the youth is not necessarily meant to connect with an older generation or connect with them in the same way. So I'm okay with that. But some of the things that are disappointing to me is the lack of stage presence. They don't give you a live show. I think that I don't mind them using samples. I don't mind interlopes. I like you taking your creative spin on something old and making it new again. But I think that is the problem, that they aren't really doing much with the samples and the things. It feels like a retread, like not even anything fresh with it. So I don't know. And then you mentioned R&B, and this is the same thing that I say about hip hop, I will say about R&B. If you look at the women, SZA just had a long run at the top of the charts, blew out your girl Taylor Swift, in part of her run. Well, I won't say blew her out, but overtook her, You have Summer Walker, who's had a great deal of success. And there's a few others. The women currently seem to be really leading the charge in both of those genres, where I feel like maybe the men got a little complacent, maybe that they were used to certain things. I think with R&B artists, they were usurped by the male rap star, because the adoration, the feelings, the emotions that people used to reserve for R&B males, they now give to male rappers.
Wow.
Future is emotional as anybody. Think about it.
Future Drake. Who else is carrying that torch?
Right. I mean, a lot of them. We talk about, so, and again, I'm okay with it, but it does say something. It leaves a kind of interesting space for R&B because it feels like for men, it's either adult contemporary kind of listening. If you think about it, those guys like,
if it's still live.
Are you like someone like Lucky Day? Maybe where do you hear him at on your spectrum?
Okay, so I love Lucky Day. I listen to Lucky Day, but I don't listen to the radio, so I don't know where he fits on the radio.
Okay,
I just know there's certain things that speak to me, and I hear other people vibing off of it too. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So Lucky Day hits me and others. Like, I don't know if we're. Anyway, do you know Lucky Day is not a kid, right?
Right.
Probably
he's
like
like
in his
almost
late
40.
30s. Yeah.
Right.
And like, even though he's new to the game, he seems like he sings like a new cat. So I want him to have as long a run as he can. I like what he does. And even though he's got like this specific kind of vibe, like his style is not like somebody who like was reared on 90s music or even 80s music. I want him to prosper. I like the lane that he's opening up. I just don't know who's actually, lifting up a Lucky Day on radio, video. Like, I don't know what the channels are for him.
Do you like Larry June or Brent Faiyaz?
I feel like I've heard something from Brent Faiyaz that I like. Larry June?
Mm-hmm.
I might have heard it and liked it, but not actually known.
Let me find out. He's
Look,
a
are you
rapper.
gonna learn me today?
He's a rapper, but I feel like he kind of has stuff that's a little lyrical in a way. Like, kind of, it's that thing. Let me ask you this. What is your favorite era of music?
Oh, that's not fair. That's not fair.
You can order them. Like, and it can be, here's the thing. If you have, because I have a problem with favorites of most things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a very hard time narrowing things down to just this. So it could be, this is my favorite because of this. Like, I love the disco era, right? I love the fashion. I love the music. I love the dancing. I love the excess of Studio 54. I feel like if I could have been of age in that time, I would have been trying to wear Halston, Bob Mackie. I would have been Bianca Jagger's like mini understudy or something like that, minus all the drugs. I would hope.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, I know that is a part of the experience in the 70s, but the destruction after, that was before they get plastic surgery, their nose were caving in and stuff like that. Nobody wants that. Not so great. Yeah.
I mean, okay, so
what
the
would be your
default
favorite?
would be, I'm going to be a 90s kid because, like, I grew up through the 80s, but I know there's flaws in 80s music. They were still finding their way into, like, electronic instruments and whatnot. But 90s music brought in so much of what I liked from the 70s. Like, I have to let them win because that's what all the grooves are based on. All the samples are coming from the 70s and, again, the 80s, of course.
So because if you think about the 90s, right, the early 90s is we have the ushering in of gangster rap, right?
Right.
We are coming off of, like, the very much political kind of Afrocentric rap. We were still wearing medallions, red, black, and green. It's so much more than red, black, and green. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Bet you don't know where that came from. That's X-Clan. Anyway, so we were in a very, conscious state movement coming off of the, Berlin Wall falling and things of that nature, right? The mid-90s, we started getting into, that was East Coast, West Coast thing, kind of, as far as R&B and groups. What? We had Whitney kind of in there. 93 was it 91 or 93?
For the Bodyguard soundtrack
Bodyguard
was 92.
soundtrack was 92. 91 was the album
I'm
with
Your
your name.
Tonight.
Yeah, I'm Your Baby Tonight, which...
maybe it was 90, actually. Because I feel like it probably wouldn't have been a year between releases for her.
Maybe not. Maybe
they're probably doing singles all through 91.
That's true because you did work an album a lot longer. But we took, but by the end of that, we're in shiny suit era with hip hop, right? We have Mariah through that time period, who went through a lot of changes. Not my favorite, but where I became a Mariah, I feel like a lamb, right? I love Division of Love. I was locked in, right? Mm-hmm. But and we kind of mentioned on this a little bit as you were talking about one of the next pieces you're going to be writing. And of course we have to tell everyone where to find your amazing writing and see on there.
Please and thanks.
But the whole music box, really pop era Mariah, she didn't start to win me back over. Fantasy did. I'll admit it. I was like, what's Mariah know about ODB? How she got ODB on there? She don't listen to Wu-Tang. She's lying. And even though she had, what was it with Escape?
Oh, the Always Be
My Baby.
remix.
Yeah. Which was amazing. I was still like, I
So
don't
why was you
know.
giving her the side eye? Was it the perception of Mariah?
It was too pop for me. It was like, I felt like, I feel like we as Black people at that time period, I know it's changed now. People, look at identities differently. But at that time, we knew when someone was one of us, We were like, oh, Mariah Black, right?
Did we actually know, though?
We weren't sure. I felt like we did when we looked at it. We were like, But then when they started moving her pop, it was like, okay, they got her on this Whitney Houston track. Oh, then she's marrying Tommy. Oh, she's really pop. But then she came with the Butterfly album. And listen, that album, after that,
Bar none.
I was there. And then I got an opportunity to work with her too. So.
Oh, that's right, because she was also
Because I was at Virgin and she was at Virgin when she did that thing. The Glitter soundtrack, that was an adventure. And let me remind you, I call it a soundtrack. It was an album. That was a soundtrack. And people should have taken it as such. It was a companion piece for the movie. The movie being what it was very much an 80s pop thing. And people were looking at it as a Mariah album. And that's why I think that they were disappointed the sales were wonky. And then she was going through some personal things.
There was so much stuff happening. I just took in her whole The Meaning of Mariah Carey audiobook, which is an amazing experience. But, man, I had no idea everything that was working against her at that time.
The Virgin years, I mean, obviously I wasn't super, super close, but I was there. And there was so much internal discourse and battle. Like, Mariah wanted to... she had a publicist that had been with her a very long time. They very much still wanted to keep her one way in this very much pop box. And Mariah was leaning heavily into her hip hop bag. I remember she came into the office to play Glitter for us. And, as sometimes may happen, the urban aspect of the label, urban PR, urban promotions, and so forth, they were kind of gathered on one side, and then the pop bases and others, not like in a bad way.
Could you see people split?
No, there's some, intermingling, but Mariah was definitely drawn towards the urban side. When we come forward, we'll have more with our guest, Mark Chappelle. We're also going to get into Irv Gotti's comments about Damon Dash, all that and more. You're locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. News and sports is up next.
Warm it up, la 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 la. The boys are waiting, la 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 la. Warm it up, la 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 la. The boys are waiting. My milkshake brings all the boys to the
RSVP with Jill Munroe is your go-to show for staying in the know. More engaging conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Doug Davis, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. No arrests have been made so far connected to the Georgia election interference investigation in Fulton County, Georgia. It's been a week since racketeering indictments were brought down against former President Trump and 18 co-defendants. Black District Attorney Fonnie Willis has given everyone a deadline of this Friday to surrender. Meantime, former President Trump's bond in that Georgia election case is set for $200,000. Trump's lawyers met with the Fulton County District Attorney's office today to negotiate terms of his bond and release. Officials at a Texas HBCU near Houston say heat exhaustion is the main reason for more than 36 students being hospitalized after a school event. Emergency medical professionals were called to Prairie View A&M University during the final night of Panther Camp activities for new students. And that is the latest. I'm Doug Davis from the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Need an accident attorney by your side? All you got to do is call the accident guys.
Injured in a car accident or at work? The accident guys can come to you almost anywhere, so you don't have to come to us. Se habla español.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
When you're young, life is full of choices. Don't let opioids like highly addictive and deadly fentanyl take away your life with just one wrong pill. Addiction is a disease that can affect anyone at any age. But there is a choice to get help for this disease. Find medically proven treatment options, including virtual, at choosemat.org.
Are you looking to steer your career in a new direction? Driving for the Culver City Bus can be your ticket to a long-lasting career with excellent benefits and paid training. Culver City Bus is looking for customer service and safety-minded bus operators to join the growing team. Culver City Bus offers on-the-job paid training, uniform allowance, and health benefits. Culver City Bus are now even putting their money in your pocket with the one-time $2,500 sign-on bonus. Let us connect you with an essential service job. If you enjoy driving, seek real opportunities for career advancement, and passionate about making a difference in your community, then we invite you to join the team. Start your journey by submitting an application at culvercity.org/job. For more information, visit culvercitybus.com or call the live customer service operator at 310-253-6500. Again, 350-253-6500.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Curating the most compelling stories and delivering them straight to your ears. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
That was a meal on this. What? Don't challenge me in karaoke because in addition to my R&B pop diva stance, I'm fully a rapper. I hit raps. And I hit male raps because I'm a hardcore rapper. You are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. My rapper steez. Welcome in, VIPs. It's Monday night. We have such a packed show for you. I am joined by my guest, music historian and journalist, Mark Chappelle.
Hey, y'all.
We have been talking about the state of music currently, R&B, hip-hop, where it stands. I am making the stance that the ladies have been holding it down in both R&B and hip-hop for the genres, moving the art forward, carrying the torch, setting the pace. The men are just, I guess they're cooking. They're back there developing some more content, some fire hits or something. Andy?
You're not wrong, I don't think. I'm just saying.
I think the men have been neutered.
So you think because of, in what way? In what capacity?
Well, I just think hip hop in general is definitely garbage. And I don't know, maybe I'm the older generation now. You know what I mean? But I do think that the game has definitely been infiltrated. There is a lack of political expression when it comes to hip hop. If there is a political expression, you're underground, or you're just not going to be pushed to the forefront.
Right.
Y'all talked about Lucky Day earlier or whatnot. Dope artists. And the question was posed, is there a space for him on radio or whatnot? Yes, there is a space for him on radio, but the problem is it's infiltrated because everything is about the mighty dollar.
Right.
So, you know what I'm saying? That's why you're going to hear Drake every 20 minutes, because whatever machine he has behind him is pushing the money for the radio stations to play certain songs. So, yeah, there is no place for Lucky Day considering the business aspect of it. But, hey, the game has been infiltrated. That's the reason why it sucks. You talk about there's no artist development, there's no shows. The music game is garbage. And shout out to the ladies. I'm actually proud of the ladies holding it down. But you know what though? There's like one specific female archetype when it comes to this hip hop game.
That is true.
Where's the balance at?
So I did finally check out Ladies First. I know I've been slacking on that. And what I did find was interesting, without having seen it, I feel like a question I posed was answered to a degree in the Ladies First video. I mentioned how Deborah Harry, when she was in Blondie and Rapture, was one of the first charting songs for a female rapping. Not that she was a rapper, right? And so I wondered what her place was as far as hip-hop was. Would she consider, do people consider it at all? I know appropriation conversations are big now, obviously so. And so what I immediately noticed in the documentary is they talked about her doing Rapture. I didn't realize that she brought on the Funky Four plus one more and had them perform when she performed Rapture on Saturday Night Live and gave them their own spotlight. So that means the plus one more, Sha-Rock, right, got to perform on national television because of Deborah Harry. And she said that she wanted to make sure to bring them on specifically because that is how, through, I think we had this conversation on Twitter about that. And so I went and researched it because we talked about Fab Five Freddy and they were friends. As far as I know, it was only friendship. I don't know if there was something further, but he kind of put her on and, led her to be out there. So that's a lot. But what are kind of your thoughts on Deborah Harry? What I appreciate is even back then, she represented for real hip hop and she wanted to make sure she shared her platform at a time when she didn't have to, and it probably wasn't appreciated.
Look, so I know about Blondie from growing up in the 80s and respect Blondie for what, I want to say she, but they did, because I know they're a whole band. But I didn't know until you just mentioned that she put on the Funky Four plus one more. I'm like, this is before people actually were being held accountable for using their platforms in ways that actually elevated the people who did the art form originally. I didn't realize that she was even thinking like that. Because, of course, like, you might have had David Bowie talking about how they need to have more black artists on MTV. But, like, I don't know where our white allies for crossing racial barriers were and making sure that there wasn't cultural appropriation happening. So yeah, now I got to go do a whole bunch of research on Blondie. Thank you. You did this to me, but actually for me.
You know, here's the thing though. I love Blondie. Like, Call Me, Heart of Glass. Like, let me tell you, I go in on some Blondie. I know it seems weird, right? But I do. I love her.
I think it only seems weird now because she's white, and of course, if we had to talk about white rappers or white female rappers, it complicates the conversation.
Well, I don't consider her a rapper in any way, shape, or form. I think she just rapped in a song.
She's an artist who rapped. Yeah,
she's an artist who raps, but I really don't plug her in that. I liked her as a pop artist, when I was a kid. Like, listen, if you want to talk about, I guess, LA radio stations, because this is where I grew up, you know, I was listening to the pop stations as well as, you know, my urban side. I was watching MTV and BET. I had cable. I was fortunate enough to have both, so I could flip back and forth.
Okay, so here's a reason why I'm a music historian, because if you grew up through the 80s, you knew what black people were listening to then. So when I hear black people now who maybe weren't alive then or maybe weren't outside then talking about like, oh, black people don't do this, I want to be like, wait a minute. Let me just add this, because black people would listen to anything that was soulful on the radio. Like our radio programming wasn't necessarily just like, oh, only black people are here. We would listen to anything that had like rhythm to it, that had soul to it in the music. And even if the artist was white, there was still
Madonna's first single was played primarily on black radio, Holiday.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
Was that one of the ones that was produced by Bernard Edwards? I don't know, because I know he had a hand.
Maybe it was the first one, Holiday. She didn't have a video for it because Lucky Star, I think, was next, but Holiday was first. It kind of was a buzzer singer underground.
Everybody, that was the one.
Okay.
Because my mama played it too, and my mama is black, so I'm like, this is what black people were listening to, including that stuff that had actually our vibe to it. We kind of defined what was danceable to a certain degree.
I mean, think about it. Hall & Oates.
Yep.
David Bowie, put on your red shoes and dance.
Let's Dance. Yep.
Let's Dance, yeah. That
Talking Heads even.
Talking Heads, all of that got play on black radio stations in the 80s.
So that figured into what was soulful even before it became just like, okay, you have to be black in order to have that happen, or else it's an exception.
So, you know, I think it's an interesting
I have rants
thing.
about it.
You have rants about it. Okay. So you said the 90s is your special era, right?
Right.
All right. What makes it special?
Okay, it's only special because I grew up in it. So anybody that was probably born 10 years later than me probably loves the 2000s. They're probably all into what Irv said.
I think everybody loves the 90s. I think that is kind of
I think
the
it's
trendy
lovable.
thing. I don't know if they really mean it, but I think everybody claims the 90s as their decade that they look back on with fondness. From movies to fashion to entertainment, all of that. I think that is where people are locked in at. When we come forward, we'll have more with Mark Chappelle. We'll get into this Irv Gotti and his statements regarding Damon Dash,
what is it
you
now?
know, the complications, all of that and more. You are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Trending topics and the hottest happenings. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
Need help with the job hunt? It can be challenging, but don't worry. LA County has your back. With a variety of available support services, you'll get the help you need while finding a job. We're here to help you succeed. Let's get started. Find out if you qualify at recovery.lacounty.gov/programs. That's recovery.lacounty.gov/programs. LA County and you moving forward together.
Dominique DePrima for KBLA Talk 1580. Are you worried about your credit score? Well, look, you can rebuild it. There are lots of factors that go into determining your credit score, but one of the most effective ways to improve your score is to consistently pay your bills on time, over time. If you're forgetful about payments like me, try automating your bill payments. That way all your creditors get paid on time and you'll have freed yourself of trying to remember. Whatever your financial goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Initiatives can help support you in reaching them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Roll Charmin Ultra Strong when you drop in the beat. It cleans with way less effort on your seat. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Charmin flows extra strong from the road. Your butt hella clean while you're sitting on the bowl. Yeah, it's all you need for that bathroom groove. Get you in and out without nothing to prove.
Charmin Ultra Strong cleans better so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for voting rights. When We All Vote is a leading national nonpartisan initiative on a mission to change the culture around voting and to increase participation in each and every election by helping to close the race and age gap. Created by Michelle Obama, When We All Vote brings together individuals, institutions, brands, and organizations to register new voters across the country and advance civic education for the entire family and voters of every age to build an informed and engaged electorate for today and generations to come. When We All Vote empowers their supporters and volunteers to take action through voting, advocating for their rights, and holding their elected officials accountable. Please visit whenweallvote.org to stand up for your rights, voting rights. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more captivating conversation on RSVP with Jill Munroe.
You are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. Now listen, if you want to call in and join in on the conversation, 800-920-1580, you are always welcome to do that. Now, we have been mentioning a little bit about Irv Gotti. You know, Irv Gotti is a chatty patty, like Dame Dash like to dub people a few years back on his Breakfast Club appearance.
Oh, Lord.
Although Dame is his own version of a chatty patty, but I guess it's okay if you are the one doing the chatting, right? Right? Because, of course, if you got something to say, it's more important than if they got something to say. But anyway, Irv recently appeared on the Drink Champs podcast, and he had a conversation with Noor and DJ Effin about Dame's contribution to Roc-A-Fella Records. It started off because Noor mentioned that at the Book of Hove exhibit at the Brooklyn Public Library that recently happened for Jay-Z, Dame's name was omitted from the Book of Hove. And, you know, that seems kind of severe to me because understand the relationship, understand that it's a lot of drama and it's a lot of bombs that have been dropped. But I feel like Dame contributed. I feel like he got his bully on as far as promotion. He did a lot with marketing. And though, well, let's get into the clip and then we can get into this.
But Biggs, Dame, and Jay, like when I used to see them, it used to be so tight. I never thought that this would happen. Did you see this day coming?
He would have subbed it for anybody.
Yeah. Back then.
He was in it.
I mean...
Yeah.
Remember what I said?
Mm-hmm.
Jay didn't need nobody.
Right. Right.
Jay don't need nobody.
Right.
So you really don't think that Dame had anything to do with the success?
You say that.
No, I'm asking. I mean, it's kind of a question.
Right. I remember Dame fighting for the artist. I remember that.
Because regardless of how you feel about the person, you got it. Whatever they did should be credited.
He started Roc-A-Fella with Jay and things, so he should get credited. I'm saying the making of the records
and the studio sessions, Clark Kent was there.
So
I don't know. What do you want me to say?
He said no.
He said after they made it, Jay didn't need nobody.
You didn't
say Jay wasn't important. Jay was picking the beats. Jay was rapping over the beats. He gave Jay was making things. It was all Hove.
Right.
It was along for the ride. Great ride. It was a great ride.
So what I will say about this is that we can't forget that it was just about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, that Dame was dissing Irv Gotti and blaming him for Jay-Z dropping the super dud response to Ether that Irv produced. So I don't know if maybe this is a little get back, if it's a little, creative retelling of history, because all the relationships have soured. Again, both Dame and Irv have become chatty patties in their late 40s, early 50s, and here's the thing. We enjoy these stories. We like to hear it, but I don't know how I feel about the restructuring of the history. What are your thoughts kind of that? Because I know hip hop is like not your favorite.
Look, it's not my fave, but I realized that if you were a player at that time and that was your era that you can speak to it. You can say like, oh, it was like this. It wasn't like that. You were there. You weren't there. I guess Irv can say it, but I'm so used to ignoring Irv now because like it's too often I hear like, oh, Irv said something and it turned out to be some old mess, basically. Like, I don't know how much of it is true, how much of it is not. You just know that there's probably an exaggeration somewhere. So I'm like, I don't be paying attention to him.
Irv has a lot to say. I think, listen, I feel like I understand what he's saying about Jay-Z's talent. Jay-Z would have been Jay-Z in theory without Dame. But I do think that having someone to maneuver for you in those circumstances, having someone so that you don't always have to be the bad guy when dealing with, these radio guys or things like that is helpful. It's very helpful. The interview was pretty enlightening. Irv gets into why he sold his masters and his publishing. He has an upcoming movie coming out, We Made It in America. It's slated to drop in October. And, it will loosely mirror the life of Jay-Z and his journey from drug dealer to successful entrepreneur. He said he's picking up, he just dropped a 6-episode TV series that documented him selecting the lead actor for this film that is loosely based on Jay-Z's life.
Okay, now this is Irv's project, you said?
Yes.
Now, didn't we just hear him giving fever to Ashanti in a very kind of uncouth way in service of promoting one of his projects? I'm like, do I remember something like that?
A little bit, yeah. A little bit.
Again, this is why I try to avoid listening to stuff that Irv says, because I think he probably is like, I'm trying to think of, who was the dude? Don King.
Okay, you think he's just a fight promoter, he's just a hype guy?
Maybe it's just that. Because I'm like, there might be something to what he's saying. I don't remember when Dame Dash did Dame Dash Music Group. I don't remember it taking off. I don't remember them launching any artists. So, like, there could be something there. Like, if you say that someone who is part of a team, can't replicate the success on their own, I don't remember having that associated with Dame. And
I think that is a fair point. I think that and that's why I say Dame had an excellent product to work with. But, they all contributed. They all had their role, and they all fed off of each other. Kind of to your point, Irv said of Dame speaking bad on him about the whole thing with Super Ugly and all of that. Irv says that he doesn't listen to Dame. He said, does anyone listen to Dame anymore? Wow. He's lit on the internet. Good for him. I don't give a freak about what Dame Dash has to say. I can't be called a culture vulture because I'm the culture. I heard what he said.
Wow.
He said, Dame was never around. Hove is Hove. Don't get it freaked up. He don't need nobody. So that is what Irv is standing on. He also talked about a couple other things, including Ashanti reuniting with Nelly. He said that, he admitted that, bringing her up before was a regrettable decision.
Oh, how long did it take him to admit that?
I listen, this was just in the most recent interview. He said that it wasn't, the best thing to do.
Those apologies be late, man. Where was that when you needed it, where you can just not say that?
Listen, let me tell you what else he said, because this is funny. He said,
there's more. Okay.
She's done messing with me. No one's sitting around thinking, oh, but she still looks great. You ain't want her when you seen that last picture. I mean, this is with all respect to women. I get some of the most baddest broads. We're just going to say broads.
Okay.
You will ever see in your life, and they not Ashanti. They're black, white, Latina. I get bad broads. So it sounds like he's hurt.
Really?
He also complained about, it's hard for him to find women because the women he dates, if he gets with a 26-year-old Dominican girl, she's asking him for $25,000, and that's not the way to go. And it's like, Irv, you're 50. What do you think a 26-year-old girl is going to ask of you? Do you think they think you're lit? Like, that's just part of the game. If you want to be the old daddy with the young little tender on your arm, you might have to spend some coins.
Okay, I hope this is not a cliche, but do these people have therapists?
We don't know. Maybe.
I just want to know if somebody is helping them, is listening to them. Like, maybe they don't feel heard. I don't know. But come on, that's a lot to... I wonder if Irv is saying all this stuff because there's a place where he just feels like nobody is listening to him. And so, like, he just gets media attention.
I mean, we do know what garners controversy. I felt like he was trying to guard his words throughout this interview a little bit. He was choosing his word. You heard the pauses when he was talking about Jay-Z.
Look, those pauses were awkward.
And I felt like he was considering what to say, what not to say, and how to say it. I don't know why, but I definitely feel that was part of the thing.
Maybe he was trying not to get ate up on the internet?
Maybe. IsGrad07, I hope I said that right, said, behind every great product, there has to be someone to champion it. Here, I agree with you on that. So, I mean, listen, like I said, Irv has a lot of conversation, a lot to say, a lot to say. He also responded to Fat Joe coming to Ashanti's defense when he was speaking out of turn about her. Listen, he said Fat Joe said, when you keep ranting about somebody 20 years later, it feels like you're not over that young lady, right?
Kind of like that.
Feels like that. And Irv said, Fat Joe is my brother. I do not feel that Fat Joe is my brother anymore. In his defense and Ja's defense, they go and do shows with Ashanti, but Rule will never come out and say Gotti's a sucker, blah, 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 blah. Listen, Irv, I don't know. I would say take that L, but we're going to see. When we come forward, we're going to have more conversation. We're going to get into Steph Curry saying he's the greatest. We're going to have more music conversation with music journalist Mark Chappelle. And, of course, we're going to get into what some thought was a musical pairing and comparing American Idol to Star Search. Who has created the biggest stars? All that and more when we come forward. You're locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. News and sports is up next.
Can I get a pretty fellas from all of my ladies who don't got love or players without thugs? Now can you bounce with me? Can you bounce with me? Bounce with me, bounce with me. Can you bounce with me? Bounce with me. You ain't gotta be rich, but bump that. Help won't get around on your horse pass. So I put this on your horse stash. Can you afford that? My fellas, breadwinners, left corn, ambition makes me.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Doug Davis, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. No arrests have been made so far connected